welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today it's another Rotted request as I hand the reins over to my patrons as I am subjected to their whims and wills and forced to watch the movie that they put on my plate. And today's suggestion comes to us from patron Shifty, who recommended the 2018 movie Head Count. And when I asked Shifty why this movie, he answered, "This is a recent indie movie that I don't hear a lot about. I was a bit surprised by the quality. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, and maybe others will check it out if they're looking for recommendations." Well, Shifty, check it out. Indeed, I did. There are some lessons that I tend to learn, well, honestly, throughout life, but in the creation of this channel and the 3 years that this has been going on, I continue to learn new lessons, and I'll be damned if this movie didn't teach me a really good one. Written and directed by 𝗘𝗾𝘂𝗶𝗽𝗺, this movie was also written by Michael Nader, and in this we follow the character of Evan, played by Isaac J. And Isaac is a college student that is about to go on break, and he decides that he wants to spend his break visiting his brother Peyton, where he lives in a trailer out in Joshua Tree. He figures this would be a good chance to reconnect with his brother and spend some time just kind of hanging out, hiking, so on and so forth, reform those bonds. And while he's out there and they go out on a hiking trip, they come across a group of peers. Peyton doesn't seem too awfully interested in hanging out with this group, however, Evan does, as he finds himself drawn to the character of Zoe, played by Ashley Morgan, and Zoe too finds herself just a little bit taken with Evan. So Peyton basically gives his blessing, "Fine, bro, go out with them, hang out with them, they're gonna go partying tonight, just hit me back up tomorrow." And at this point you might be asking, well, where's the horror? Where's the supernatural turn? Where's the stuff? And the stuff is basically centered around the notion of, at any given point, there might be one extra person in the group that shouldn't be there. And I'll just leave the rest to be a mystery to be absorbed and unpacked for anybody that wants to watch this movie later. When I mentioned that this movie taught me some lessons, I think chief among them was keep your expectations in check and watch with an open mind, because honestly, when I was first starting to watch this, I wasn't terribly interested. The characters were a bit vapid, and there was something else going on that really kind of, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me. And that was primarily this group of people that Evan and Peyton ran into was quite large, and a lot of them at face value seemed rather interchangeable personality-wise. I was watching this and thinking, man, I don't know how far I'm going to get with this while being able to actually follow who these characters are, what they're about. There's just too many of them to really keep track of. You know, you kind of find yourself in some slasher movies with a little bit of a sweet spot. You know, maybe 5 or 6 characters, a couple of throwaways maybe that are just going to get torn apart in the very beginning part of the movie, but the core elements there are uniquely identifiable small group of characters that you can kind of follow along with, and this just seemed a bit bloated in that regard. But I'm glad that I kept an open mind about it, and honestly that was the real lesson to be learned here, is to just kind of let the movie happen. You know, fine, you're an hour into an hour and a half long movie and it's not gelling for you and everything's terrible, fine. Okay, at that point you can kind of draw some conclusions. But when you're just getting started, just allow it to be what it is and go in with an open mind and continue with an open mind. Allow the movie to be what it's supposed to be. And I'm glad that I did that with this one, because that mass of almost interchangeable, way too many characters turned out to be not a sin of the film, but something that worked in its favor. I didn't find this to be a terribly scary movie, but I did find it to be terribly interesting. This was a simple concept and it was executed very well. The fact that the characters were so many and interchangeable meant that you never really had a good bead on who was in any given room at any given time talking with any other given characters. And because of that, you as the audience member will tend to lose track of everybody. And that served the purposes of the narrative of this movie perfectly. That's not to say that Head Count isn't without its sins. It absolutely is. I thought that the ending got a little bit odd for my taste. The mythos itself a little bit muddled, and some of the characters, were just kind of unnecessarily abrasive. It really didn't add anything to the story or the characters, just with some of the conflicts that were just kind of thrown in there for good measure and for having characters yell at each other. Regardless of any sense that this movie may and does have, as far as anything that prevents it from achieving any sort of masterful level, I do think that it is absolutely worth watching, and I do recommend it because it is a fascinating watch. The core concept is solid, and that core concept, although it does get muddled, was executed extremely well. And because of that, I have to agree with you, Shifty. This is one worth watching, and I do think it should be on more people's radars. So thank you for recommending the 2018 movie Head Count. And thank you out there for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please click like and subscribe. It really, really does help me out a whole lot. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.